"Here we are at last, Mrs. Holden," Anna said, rubbing her tired eyes. "My dear Anna," Margaret Holden began, her voice trembling as tears silently streamed down her face. Margaret's son, Michael, was the pride of their small town. Everyone knew the Holdens. Their name carried a legacy. Margaret had been a beloved elementary school teacher, following in the footsteps of her late mother, Helen Carter, who had once been the headmistress of the very same school. Helen was revered by the townspeople, but ill health had forced her to step down early. Margaret lost her mother at the tender age of 20, a loss that shaped her dreams of one day becoming a teacher like Helen. When Helen retired, a stern, ambitious man from the regional board replaced her. His modern reforms clashed with the school's spirit, and though he attempted to implement sweeping changes, it wasn't long before he was promoted to a higher position. The director's office then welcomed Mrs. Harrison, a seasoned physics teacher who had spent decades nurturing students and colleagues alike. It was under Mrs. Harrison's leadership that young Margaret began her teaching career. Bright-eyed and full of ambition, she joined the staff and soon caught the attention of a charming biology teacher. He was a lively, handsome man, instantly popular with the unmarried women of the faculty. But his choice fell on Margaret, a poised, striking woman with a cascade of chestnut curls that she tied neatly into a bun at work. Outside of school, her free-flowing hair and natural elegance could have graced the cover of a fashion magazine. Their romance blossomed, leading to a beautiful wedding. 3 years later, they welcomed Michael into their lives. But tragedy struck too soon. Margaret's husband passed away unexpectedly, leaving her to raise their son alone. She didn't believe in the family curse her great-grandmother had often spoken about, a tale of heartbreak that supposedly haunted their bloodline. Yet it seemed to follow them. The legend began long ago with a headstrong woman named Martha. Forced into a loveless marriage for financial reasons, Martha had married an older, cruel man. Unable to bear his abuse, she devised a desperate plan. After intoxicating her husband one evening, she sent him to the sauna, only to find it engulfed in flames shortly after. Martha became a widow that night. While the townsfolk chalked the tragedy up to misfortune, her mother-in-law was unconvinced. The old woman cursed Martha and her descendants, condemning them to lose their husbands young. Margaret, though skeptical of such superstitions, couldn't ignore how often tragedy struck the men in their family. Years passed, and Margaret devoted herself to Michael's upbringing, never remarrying despite several offers. When Michael came of age, she eagerly anticipated choosing the perfect wife for him. However, her plans crumbled when Michael introduced Anna, a humble nurse, older than him by a few years, and unremarkable in Margaret's eyes. "I love her, and I'm going to marry her," Michael declared one evening, his tone resolute. Margaret's response was swift and piercing. "You will do no such thing," she shouted, her voice echoing in the chandeliered room. Decades of commanding classrooms had given her voice a sharp authority. Anna, trying to speak, was silenced with icy words. "And you, I neither know you nor care to. Leave my house this instant. Leave." Tears welled in Anna's eyes as Michael glared at his mother with a fury she'd never seen before. "If she goes, I go," he said firmly, and with that, he walked out the door, leaving Margaret alone in the cold silence of her own making. Through her extensive social connections, Mrs. Holden delved into Anna's background. The findings were far from encouraging. Poverty-stricken, from a family with no means to their name. Anna's parents were hardworking but perpetually broke, scraping by on long hours and minimal pay. Anna was the eldest of 3 sisters. Her life had taken a sharp turn when her father suffered a debilitating leg injury, leaving him unable to work. Faced with mounting family bills, Anna dropped out of medical school in a neighboring city to take a job as a nurse at a local clinic. When Michael and Anna married, they initially moved into Anna's grandmother's modest home on the outskirts of town. Grandma Elsie was a kind but frail woman who lived in a small house with a wood-burning stove, a vegetable garden, and an outhouse. Mrs. Holden couldn't fathom her son lasting long in such conditions. But to her surprise, he stayed. It seemed love truly bound them together. When Elsie's health declined, Anna took on the role of caregiver, and after her passing, the young couple inherited the house. Soon after, their daughter Marina was born. Anna proved to be resourceful, managing their household with a quiet determination. Michael worked long hours, and despite their simple means, they were content. Mrs. Holden, however, refused to see it that way. She spread whispers about Anna's supposed laziness, unworthiness, and even accused her of witchcraft. According to her, Anna had bewitched Michael, trapping him in a life of squalor and robbing him of his future. "She bewitched my son," Mrs. Holden would murmur to her acquaintances. "She must be drugging him to keep him by her side. And that child? A calculated trick to bind him forever." Michael ignored the rumors. He didn't rise to defend Anna, believing silence was the best way to stifle the gossip. But Mrs. Holden was relentless. Her circle of influence spanned the entire town. Mrs. Holden's accusations were a persistent undercurrent in Anna's life. As Marina grew, Anna returned to work, and the gossip escalated. At the clinic, Anna felt the weight of whispers and side eyes from colleagues. People openly chuckled about her strange daughter, claiming Marina was off, too quiet, and too peculiar. "Probably takes after her mother," they'd say, smirking. Rumors swirled that Anna brewed strange herbal concoctions for her child, making her different from the others. One day, the cruel taunts spilled over. At preschool, a group of children cornered Marina, calling her names, "witch's child" among them. Marina fought back with her fists, but the damage was done. The label of witch clung to Anna like a shadow. It didn't help that she had a habit of foraging for medicinal herbs, or that she lived near the forest in what some locals called a creepy old house. But Anna never stopped dreaming. She wanted to complete her medical degree and become a doctor. Slowly, with Michael's help, they repaired the little house. They replaced the old fence, dug a new well, and even added a fresh coat of paint. For a time, it seemed their simple life might finally quiet the rumors. Then, Michael received an opportunity to work in a larger town. A factory offered him a better position, and soon the family moved, renting a small apartment there. Anna and Michael sold the house to a kind older couple who appreciated the cozy repairs. Life in the new town was kinder to them. Michael's skill as a machinist earned him the nickname Golden Hands, and he quickly became indispensable at the new factory. When a private firm offered him a lucrative position, he seized the chance, though the venture later folded. Despite the setback, Michael found steady work at a defense plant. Meanwhile, Anna revived her dream. With Marina old enough for school, Anna re-enrolled in medical school, determined to finish her degree. Michael supported her wholeheartedly, juggling his work with family responsibilities. Together, they built a life defined not by luxury, but by resilience and quiet triumphs. As for Mrs. Holden, the years only deepened the chasm between them. Michael rarely spoke to his mother, and Anna never sought to bridge the gap. To them, the rumors she had spread belonged to a past they were happy to leave behind. Marina grew up to be a bright and capable girl, dreaming of becoming a doctor just like her mother. "You need to visit the regional hospital for a consultation. Specialists like that aren't available here," the doctor explained, her tone calm but firm as she filled out a referral form. "Take this to the reception desk to have it stamped. After that, come back to see me, and we'll figure out the next steps together." Margaret Holden shuffled down the clinic's hallway, her steps heavy and uncertain. "What a strange doctor," she grumbled quietly to herself. "Why can't they check everything here? Why make me go anywhere else? What's the point of all this? I've already had enough." Her thoughts turned darker as she stopped near the coat check, pulling out her ticket. "I won't go. What will be, will be. I'll keep taking my pills, like always, and wait for the end." Her despair welled up, and before she could stop it, tears started rolling down her cheeks. Just as she reached out to hand her ticket to the attendant, the doctor caught sight of her again. "Did you get the stamp?" she asked sharply, her glasses glinting under the fluorescent lights. Margaret shook her head, unable to utter a word. "Why not?" The doctor didn't wait for an answer. With a brisk motion, she took the referral from Margaret's trembling hands and disappeared into the office beyond the counter. "Girls, I need this done right now," came her determined voice from inside. Margaret sank onto a cushioned bench in the clinic's lobby, utterly drained. Moments later, the doctor returned, handing the stamped referral back to her. "There, you must go. They've got excellent specialists there who will check everything thoroughly and make a proper diagnosis." Margaret Holden clutched the paper tightly, nodding slightly, but still feeling lost. The voices of other patients waiting nearby filtered through her haze. That doctor takes forever, a large woman huffed, fanning herself with a thick folder of medical documents. It's unbearably hot in here. It didn't seem so long, countered a petite elderly lady, her voice calm. That other woman went in and stayed for ages. Must have been in there half an hour. Inside the consultation room, Margaret sat across from Anna Harper, the specialist she had been referred to. Despite Margaret's teary eyes and trembling hands, Anna immediately recognized her. Margaret still carried herself with dignity, her posture straight and her features striking despite her age. But time had left its mark. She was now 77, her face lined with years of life's trials. Anna examined her charts thoroughly. The condition isn't serious, she finally said with a small smile. It's good you came in. This consultation will help set everything right. She wrote down a treatment plan and explained the next steps. But Margaret didn't leave. Tears streamed down her face as she clutched Anna's hand, her voice barely a whisper. Please, forgive me. Anna sighed and glanced at the clock. Mrs. Holden, this isn't the place for such conversations. I have other patients waiting, and truly there's nothing to forgive. What happened is long past, overgrown with weeds of time. It's all forgotten. Margaret didn't let go of her hand. But your family, your children. Anna smiled gently. They're fine. Marina graduated high school and started college. Ryan is still in school. Michael works at the factory. He got his 6th grade certification recently. We're doing well enough. Now please, focus on your health. Margaret nodded faintly and rose from her seat. I understand. If I were you, I wouldn't forgive me either. That evening, Anna told Michael about the visit as they sat together in the kitchen. She's still my mother, Anna, Michael said softly, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. It's hard not to feel sorry for her. Anna shook her head, her voice sharp with emotion. Was it hard for her to feel sorry for us back then, when she spread those horrible rumors? When she tried to destroy our lives? What was she hoping to achieve? Did she want us to suffer forever? Michael didn't reply. He picked up the remote and switched on the television, sighing deeply. He had no regrets about the choices he'd made. Anna was his happiness. His wife, the mother of their 2 wonderful children, and his partner through everything. As for Margaret, her choices had led her here. Years ago, she had driven Anna out. Michael had simply followed her. How could he have stayed behind? How could he have abandoned the woman he loved? Grandma, who's this? Is that you? What a beauty! Marina was flipping through the old photo album, smiling with fondness as she carefully turned each yellowed page. This was the 3rd time she had visited Margaret Holden. After finishing her studies at the university, she would catch a bus and be at her grandmother's house in an hour. That evening, she overheard her parents' conversation. She had always wondered where her grandmother was and how she was living. Her mother had always said that her grandmother lived in another city and didn't want to see them. Marina didn't understand why. Her mother never liked to talk about it. The next day, Marina found her grandmother's address among some old letters and documents and decided to visit her, not telling anyone. Margaret Holden was delighted to see her granddaughter. They hugged and then sat down to drink tea in the kitchen. Afterward, they spent a long time looking through the family album. Marina absolutely loved it. She was convinced that every person should know their roots and ancestors. This family album revealed so much to her. She had long abandoned her dream of becoming a doctor and had enrolled in the Faculty of Philology. Margaret Holden was proud of her granddaughter. She admired her and listened with a smile as Marina spoke intelligently about her studies. Well done, girl, she kept repeating, and she looks so much like Michael. Mum, Dad, I've got a surprise. Marina, where have you been? We've been waiting. We can't sit down at the table yet. You promised to be back by 3. Where were you? What's all this secrecy? Her mother rushed into the hallway and immediately began bombarding Marina with questions. It was her mother's birthday. A table was set with food, and 4 chairs were placed around it. Mum, do we have another chair? Marina peeked into the room. Margaret Holden stood by the door on the landing, feeling embarrassed. She felt foolish, almost childishly so. Why had she let Marina talk her into coming? That's it, I'm leaving, Margaret decided, but just as she turned to go, Marina's head popped around the corner. Come in, Grandma, she whispered conspiratorially. Mum? Michael was stunned when he saw Margaret Holden nervously taking off her shoes in the hallway. Are we sitting down at the table or not? Anna asked from the kitchen, slicing bread and placing it on a plate. And what's with the fifth chair, Marina? Meet my brother Michael. This is your grandma. Isn't she great? Marina said, winking at him. She used to be a teacher. All right then, she said, jokingly looming over her brother with her hands raised menacingly, her eyes wide. There's no such thing as a former teacher, Anna smiled, entering the hallway, wiping her hands on a dish towel. And no former doctors either, Margaret Holden said, hugging her daughter-in-law. Well, maybe we should sit down after all? Michael asked, awkwardly shifting from foot to foot. A silence lingered. Each person was lost in their own thoughts. Only in the kitchen could the quiet ticking of the clock be heard, while outside the passing train whistled. The fifth chair was brought from the kitchen, along with a plate and fork. At first, Margaret Holden felt a little uncomfortable, but then she slowly relaxed. Together with Marina, they had already discussed, chosen, and bought Anna a gift, a silver pendant which she truly liked. Well, Marina, her father repeated. Look at you, trying to make peace. Of course, the girl said proudly. You can't live next door and not talk. That's just silly. And you have to know your roots, your ancestors, and keep family ties. But I've already said all this. All right. What's here? Bacon, sausages. Michael, you ate all the salmon. Leave something for your sister. Marina rubbed her hands together and looked at the table, deciding what to put on her plate. Margaret Holden smiled, looking at Marina, and tears glistened in her eyes again. Anna noticed this, smiled warmly, and gently placed her hand on her mother-in-law's thin hand. And she nodded, silently reassuring her that everything was fine. She wasn't angry anymore. What would be the point? It was all in the past. That's how the story ends, friends. Join the conversation below and share your thoughts on this story. If you found it captivating, share the link with your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss a new story that will make your heart race. Your support inspires us to create more tales. Take care and see you next time.